Hey everybody, Jeremy here. Today I got two of the most highly anticipated figures of 2019 and a couple that I've been really excited for ever since they were announced last year. So this is Donatello and Raphael from how they were depicted in the original 1990 Teenage Mutant Ninja Turtles movie. Now these figures are exclusive to GameStop. They cost $22.99 and right now they're kind of hard to get because there were some inventory issues. There were issues with pre-orders. People were getting their pre-orders canceled, but don't go out and pay a scalper 300 bucks in order to get the whole set. GameStop is still selling these. You have to keep an eye out on their website and see when they are available. That's how I got these two, because I didn't pre-order. And just according to NECA themselves, they will become available. Give it about a week or two, and then they'll be in the stores as well. So they're going to be coming out. So don't worry, you'll be able to get your hands on these. So, like I said, I'm really excited about these. It's kind of like a miracle that these were even released to begin with. They started off as exclusives to Comic-Con, and then after that, we found out they were coming as GameStop exclusives in the United States of America. So, it's been a long time coming. So let's open these up and enjoy some 90s nostalgia. A central theme of this review is going to be the looks of these turtles, because that is easily the best thing about them. NECA has done an amazing job, absolutely amazing job, nailing the look of the turtles from the movie back in the 90s. The first movie, second movie, third movie, they all had that same look. And they absolutely nailed it, especially in the eyes. Donatello here is my favorite turtle. And when you look at his eyes, there's almost like a glisten in it, almost like a twinkle. There's a very lifelike tendency in the eyes alone. And maybe it's because, as people, that's kind of something that we look for. But the fact that it's here in this action figure, it's easily the thing that I recognize the most, and then it just brings out everything else. Now, for the most part, the turtles look very similar, but what's very unique about these is that each turtle had a very distinguishing characteristic in the movie to help tell them apart from each other than just the different color bandana. And I love that NECA has adapted that as well. So it's not just a bandana swap. For example, here on Donatello, he had this bit of an overbite going on with his upper lip just sort of going over his bottom lip. And that was a really awesome distinguishing feature of Donatello in the movies, and it's captured perfectly here in this figure. Down to the angle. I have no idea how they managed to do this and put it out for $22, but they did, and it looks absolutely amazing. They also did a great job of putting in like these little spots all along the body of all the turtles. That was also something that, previous figures in the past did not necessarily do, especially not this good. And as we can go all around, we can see the back of his shell. They do use a bit of a ribbon right here to sort of tie this down. The shell is textured. It looks great. There is a spot for his bow staff. You just basically slide it in between those straps if you want to do it that way. And then also the bandana on the back, it is not cloth. It is plastic, but it can come off. You get a second bandana, or at least the little tail end of the bandana inside the box. So you can just take this out. Gotta be careful because it's pretty stiff. You can just take that out, grab the other one, and just put it right back in. And then it's also articulatable in a sense. So if you wanted to go on the right side, you can. If you'd rather have it just sort of draping along the left side, you can do that as well. So that's pretty cool. And yeah, again, detail, detail, detail. It's absolutely beautiful. Now let's look at Raphael. Just like with Donatello's overbite, one thing about Raphael is, especially in those movies, is that you can sort of see his teeth a little bit more, not a whole lot, but definitely a lot more than Donatello. And again, you can see that here in the head sculpt of this figure. But then if we can also just look at the back of the shell here, you see that Raphael has, he has more scratches on his shell, because he is a bit more rough and tumble, a little bit more reckless. So, that shows in his shell back there. His bandana is also removable. It's also articulatable. I don't even know if that's a word. But yeah, you can still move it around. And he looks really good. Now, for the size that he has, two places that you can put them in the front, you just sort of put those right here in these slots. Now, unfortunately, he can't hold these sides the way that he would in the movie, where his hands will sort of go over the hook parts of these instead of holding it by the handle. These hands and the hands that he gets in the package as well, like alternate hands, they won't let you hold the sides like that. Won't let him hold the sides like that. So you kind of have to hold them by the handle, but at least you can sort of try to get a little bit more dynamic with it so they're just not straight up. You see, I got one just sort of going off to the side like that. So that's a little compromise that you'll have to do. Not such a big deal. But unfortunately, you know, the sides didn't come out very well. The bow staff on Donatello came out looking quite nice, you know, but on one of these sides, you can see it's kind of, this one is pretty jagged. I'm not too sure what happened here. It's almost as if, I don't know if it was melting a little bit or what, but it's quite rough, and you can definitely kind of tell, like maybe it didn't come out of whatever mold it was coming from, like cleanly. This other side here is a lot better than this one. I'm not going to really get caught up on that, but it is something that I did feel the need to point out because it is there. So yeah, great look all the way around. And now let's talk about articulation. As beautiful as these figures are, these are still NECA action figures. And if it's two things that NECA figures are very known for, is they look great, but when it comes to articulation, there is much to be desired. Their figures have a tendency to be stiff in the joints. It kind of feels like maybe you're going to break them if you try to articulate them too extreme, even though you know that they're capable of articulating in that way. And these turtles are really no exception. So there's some articulation here. There's about 30 points of articulation, but you're not going to get a whole lot of range out of it. So just to show you here, here's Donatello. So yeah, we can move his arms up and kind of bring them closer to the shell like that. That's not too bad. Now for the elbow, we can bend it about that much, and you can kind of get a sense of what that angle is. So it's not a double jointed. It seems like it would be, but the thing is, this elbow pad is just sort of in the way. It's quite thick along this side, so it kind of stops the articulation from really happening. It's fighting against it, and it's just sort of bringing his arm back into position, and I really don't want to force it that way. So that's for that arm articulation. And of course, you know, you can rotate it. And as for the wrist is it's like on a little bit of a pivot, so you can bring it out like that, and then you can bring it in. The head, you can get them to look up pretty decently, look down pretty decently. I like that. That can be a good look for some dynamic type shots. And then for the legs, it's sort of the same thing going on with the knee joints as it is for these elbow joints, in that you can bend the knee about that, and you can't really do much more with it because the knee pads are kind of blocking it. So that's pretty much as good as you're going to get with this. I hope you can see that because I can't see it. And as for the feet here, the feet are on a pivot. The feet can pivot. You see it pivots over there like that and pivots that way as well. You're going to have to work these joints out a little bit, just like with all NECA figures. They can feel a little bit stiff at first, but once you start working with them, it does get better. And then you can move the legs out about that much. Can't really do the splits, but you can move them out about that much. So it's not a whole lot that you can do as far as making some really awesome dynamic poses with these guys. You can sort of set up some very basic, you know, I got my weapon in my hand pose, I'm pointing at you kind of pose, you know, things like that. But you're not going to get any crazy poses out of them because they still have that NECA restriction quality to it. So with that being said, let's do a little bit of comparison between these figures and the previous figures that were brought out to showcase the 90s movies Turtles, and those were made by Playmates Toys. So right here is the Playmates Toys version of Donatello from the 90s Turtles movies. Now, I can't quite remember if it was for Secret of the Ooze or if it was for the first movie, but regardless, it was from that era. Just look at them. Mind you, The Playmates version costs around the same amount as the NECA version. So we're still looking at between this $20 to $25 range. And they sold all four turtles, and as I can recall, they weren't the easiest things in the world to find. But it was all that we had at that time. And just looking at this, it is night and day. Clearly, it is just amazing what NECA has put into making these figures as realistic and as true to life as the puppets in that movie. And then we look at the Playmates Toys version and we're like, wow, really? You know, they don't even have like the little spots all around the turtles. The face sculpt doesn't really look like Donatello. It doesn't give them that overbite. There's, you know, it's just not there. Everything is just kind of very, very flat. The colors don't really have much of variations between them. They do still have the little swirly pattern on the shell, so that was pretty nice, you know, but, you know, it's not as detailed. It's just not as good of a figure, you know, period. Now, this is going to be a fair and honest review. So that being said, I have to say this. For everything that this Playmates Toys version lacks when it comes to just the detail of the figure and the paint and the textures and everything to make him look as realistic and as close to the movie version as Donatello or any other turtle as possible, it's superior to NECA in the articulation department. So if I could have the articulation of the Playmates figure with the detail of the NECA figure, this will be absolutely perfect. Let me show you what I mean. All right, so I know it's pretty easy to dump on these Playmates turtles because of how they look, but let's just take a look at this articulation. Now, they did put effort into this. Now let's just bring these arms up, and for one thing I can tell you, first of all, you know, it's a lot easier to handle these and move them around than the NECA figures. They are not nearly as stiff. So yeah, we can move the arms up like that, okay, big deal. But these also have double jointed elbows. Now it also has the elbow pads, just like the NECA figure, but check this out. You move it in once, and then you can see that one joint go in, and then you push it in a little bit more, bam. That's your double jointed elbow. And it's just that easy. It's just that easy for that double jointed elbow. And you can also just move the arms in and out, fold them in and out just like you would with the NECA version. That's how far it goes back. And then as for the legs, you get double jointed knees. And then those work very similar to how the elbow joints work, where you move it in a little bit like that, push it a little bit more, and then you got your double jointed knees. And then you can move those legs out about that far. That's how far forward they kick. And just look at that. Look how far back you can get that leg. So, you know, if you really, truly wanted to, and I don't have his bow staff with him, but, you know, you can get something like that going on if you really wanted to, and any other kind of really, really cool, crazy, dynamic pose. And also what they did, in lieu of having interchangeable hands, they have articulated fingers. Each of their fingers is articulated. So if you wanted to kind of do a thumbs up pose, you can give them the thumbs up. If you wanted to have them go like, hey, I'm pointing at something, check that out, you can make them point at something. You can have them hold weapons just by making a closed fist. I thought that was a pretty cool thing that they implemented. They also gave them articulated toes. I don't know how useful this actually was though. I think it might have hindered being able to stand them up properly. But look how far back that toe articulation goes. So Playmates did put effort into these turtles. And it's not like the articulation is really loose either, you know. It's not all that loose. It holds its position quite well. And I've had this for, what, 2 years maybe? Maybe it's been a little bit more. And it's still been holding up. So, you know, Playmates definitely had the edge when it came to articulation and the smoothness of that articulation. But of course, it falls way behind when it comes to how the figures actually look. Now, if I had my choice, of course, I would pick the NECA Turtles any day of the week. But I do think that it's a good idea to give credit where credit is due and give Playmates their props for making the articulation as well as they did for these turtles. So the next time that we see comparisons between the two, we could probably think about that before just looking at just basically how they look and going, oh, that's trash, throw it out the window, because they do deserve credit for the posability. Real quick, I just want to show you a few of the accessories that you get with each turtle. It's not a lot, but you're going to get a slice of pizza, one slice per turtle. Pretty decent slice of pizza there, because you have to have that. And then each turtle also has an interchangeable pair of hands. So I'll just take a quick look at this. This is more of like a pointing finger hand. It's not articulatable, at least not in the fingers. It's just at the wrist. So you're going to have a difference between holding weapon hands and then just sort of regular posing hands. You can put a slice of pizza in there if you try hard enough, you know, but it's just going to add just a little bit more flavor to it, but it's not going to add a whole lot to the overall presentation of the figures. But of course, it's still very nice to have. To be honest with you, having these turtles sort of feels like a dream come true. For someone like me and a lot of other people who don't live anywhere near California and can't go to Comic-Cons to get these exclusive figures and aren't about to spend a whole lot of money to some third-person reseller on eBay or wherever to get our hands on these. I'm just so glad that somehow NECA was able to legally be able to come out with these figures at this scale, and that Playmates weren't just blocking them every single step of the way. They are GameStop exclusives, but that's fine. There are a lot of GameStops here in the United States. You can get them online, you can get them in the store, so they're readily accessible to everyone. And I can only hope that with the Shredder that they have coming out and with the Foot Soldier that they have coming out at that 1/4 inch scale, I'm hoping that they'll also be able to have the same agreement where they can shrink those down and bring them out in mass market retail so that we can add those to this selection of movie-based Teenage Mutant Ninja Turtles. This is truly one of those things where I don't know, it just seems like it was never going to happen, although in a perfect world, we would not have to wait so long to get something like this. It's been 1990. That is a long time ago. Makes me feel extremely old, but it's taken that long to get something like this. Under $25. It is easily one of the best deals available out there right now for any figure of any kind. And even though the articulation is not where I would love for it to be in that perfect world that I mentioned earlier, these are still great to put on your shelf, and they look so realistic, and the nostalgia factor is through the roof. Please don't hesitate to get these. This isn't one of those things where you can kind of be on the fence about it. Who knows if anything like this will ever happen again. Maybe it will, maybe it won't. But considering that we've had to wait so long to get something like this in this scale or even the 1/4 scale, now's the time to bite if you got the funds to do so. So thank you all so much for watching this. I am going to keep my eye on GameStop.com to see whenever I can get Michelangelo or Leonardo to finish the collection, but I'm not too worried about it. I'm pretty sure that we're going to find them sooner rather than later. So thank you all so much for watching once again, and until next time, I'm Jeremy, and I'll talk to you later.